Can't eat or drink in that thing.
No. No. Oh, no, I think I do.
So you must
They
be
were
some.
afraid enough to do it once, and I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody, to our board workshop on July 18th, 2023 at 5 o'clock. Call to order, declaration of a quorum, 6 members present, I believe 1 on the way. Brings us to item C, hearing of citizens. Do we have anything? Nothing tonight. Brings us to item D1, consideration and discussion regarding a proposed bond package for November 2023. And we have 3 on the team to present, so turn it over to you guys.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Horak. Dr. Harkrider, for the first time, members of the board. It's my pleasure to again speak with you a little bit more about the recommendation put forward by the 2023 Bond Planning Committee. Really, the objective of tonight is to go over the ballot language. There's one of our propositions that we do have options on. We've gone through all the projects in detail last month. All that information is on our website. We'll go through a little bit of background information, but then we're going to hop right into the bond language and just kind of get you guys' feedback on that. As you recall, the Bond Planning Committee recommended all of these projects to be brought to you guys, and they total a little north of $350 million. And as we talked about last time, there are several projects that we can include on the general proposition, or what we're going to call Proposition A, and those projects total close to $285 million, and all those projects are listed there. And as last time, we went through all these in detail last time around. Then there are 3 additional propositions that have to be called out and put out separately from the general proposition due to different statutes. One of those being stadiums with seating capacity of more than 1,000 spectators. And those are the 3 projects there. There's 3 projects at our 2 high school football stadiums. And then technology that basically is not part of infrastructure. These are devices. And that is a separate proposition, which will be Proposition B. The stadiums with seating capacity of more than 1,000 spectators will be Prop C. And then Proposition D will be the final one down there, which is the renovations and additions to the baseball and softball stadiums. And here they are in total, Props A, B, C, and D, totaling $350 million. As you recall, it is estimated that the selling of $350 million bonds is going to raise the INS tax rate approximately 2 cents. You'll get a little bit of information about what the M&O tax rate is going to do a little bit later in the workshop. It's a lot different than what we're used to, so just be prepared for that. It makes this 2 cents seem like a small number. So, ballot language, and Jeff can talk about this more if you guys have questions, but these are 2 options for Proposition A ballot language. What's that? Yo, this Jeff, yeah, sorry. Go ahead, yeah, here, please.
Jeff Golbus, I'm with McCall Parkhurst. We're the district's bond counsel. It's good to see everyone again. Dr. Harkrider, great to be before you. Obviously, 2 options, very, very different. Option 1, completely legally permissible. This is language CSISD has used last several bond elections other than the immediately preceding one. That option 1 used to be the most common that districts used. It's flexible, it's short, it's to the point. But these are different times. You lose what you might gain in flexibility and simplicity. You certainly lose in transparency. Uh, the goal here with y'all don't have 80 projects in your Prop A. You've got a reasonable number that can fit and be readable on a ballot. So at the direction of the district, I've written and to give you all two options, and I don't believe this is an action item. So we'll need board feedback in order for me to finalize this document for the August 15th. Obviously, option two, you're telling voters exactly what your projects are. You don't have flexibility, for example, to maybe move one, but I don't think this district ever needs to do that. And so I think option two is readable and works well. The others, you will see props B, C, and D, much more limited in scope. There isn't really any benefit to seeing multiple options. But obviously, did want the board to be able to see this in advance prior to y'all taking action. I will point out on Proposition B, we used this same language in the last CSISD bond. I've never had a technology prop fail when you do that. And as I explained to the board in the past, voters know that you sell bonds over 20, 25, in some districts 30, others 40 years. And so when you tell them that, that's understandable when you're doing buildings and stadiums, but when you're saying that this is technology and they understand it's for devices, the immediate voter reaction is, now why the heck would we finance tablets and Chromebooks over a 25-year period? And so I kind of like to call that out just to let folks know we're not financing Chromebooks and tablets over a 25-year period. Even though we structure it in the bond documents where we never finance them over a 25-year period, at least this quells the curiosity and the question when they're looking to vote on it. Happy to answer any other questions. Obviously, we've been through Senate Bill 30 issues and the separate propositions. But district staff's been real good. We've been talking, I think, starting in the spring and throughout the summer on these. So any questions whatsoever on that, be happy to answer them.
I'm just looking, is there anything that's of this list that's not explicitly called out, or is really everything we've listed?
I believe the intent is for everything that is listed here to be called out in general terms. We're not getting into detail that the renovations at A&M Consolidated or the additions is going to be, mostly science wings and that sort of thing.
But that's a really good question because there is a legal component to that if you're going to go general, you go general. If you're going to go specific, you don't get specific on some aspects, but not the others. And so we don't ever want to gloss over and mention that we're doing CTE, but not central administrative space. So that does comply. It's a really good question. I always make sure that we have covered the projects. Obviously, some that are generally maintenance or HVAC, some of that we'll lump into improvements, but otherwise, every campus or project has been delineated.
So if we like the transparency of option two, because it kind of educates people that may not be attuned to the bonds, what they're voting for.
So if we go with option two, in the cost savings from a project, you said we are locking in. So what happens to the cost savings?
Excellent question. So if you save or you have cost savings on one project, you can absolutely shift those to another one of these projects. What we can never do is pass cost savings from one proposition to another. Or in the case of option two, if CTE comes in with cost savings, maybe Consol doesn't, we can actually expand or move those savings to another one of those projects in option two. There is a statute that if you finish all of these projects and you cannot spend another dollar on them, there's a provision that the board would take. It involves conducting a meeting only for the use of proceeds for a project that wasn't approved by voters. I've never had a district do that, and I've certainly never had any districts test that since the passage of Senate Bill 30. But there is a provision, if you finished everything, you're stuck with a lot of money and you just can't find it for any of those option two projects. I would think with inflationary and escalation, that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
So
Just
Jeff,
curious.
Does that answer it?
Well, yeah, because we had been going back to the 2015 bond. I know that was pre-2019, but if we were to have cost savings, I just wanted to understand. Thank
Any
you.
cost savings you could move within those projects, right?
Jeff, is it true with the new provision too, if we did have funds left over, all of these projects were completed, and let's say there were additional renovations that we wanted to do back at A&M Consolidated, let's say that weren't included in that scope, because it's worded A&M Consolidated renovations, those funds could be used to renovate another area of the school if we needed to,
Absolutely.
correct?
Absolutely. That's right. Right. That's a very good point as well, is the proposition, and this mirrors, the ballot language mirrors a proposition. There's our legal four corners for the project, but, for example, we're not stating the east wing, science wing, and you don't really want to get that specific, but we need to let voters know that we're touching that campus, so you could do that.
I think twofold, as a voter, some voters will look and they just tell me what it is, which would be option one. Then you have the other side of the coin, option two, which paints the picture. So then it brings me to the next step, assuming this does get approved to go to a bond, is what we as the school district will put out to point out Rock Prairie renovations, A&M Consolidated renovations. Because as a voter going to the table and I see option two and it's painting the picture, okay, Rock Prairie Elementary renovations, I might not know as a voter anything about Rock Prairie. I just know the location. So I think that's going to be very important to make sure whatever's out there aligns with the bond language or ballot language. So just kind of looking at it from two different angles.
Well, and I have seen a shift in the way school districts across the state address this, and it used to be that the ballot was a decision time, not an education time. And that has shifted, and now it has become finding that mailers and brochures and websites aren't always reaching people, that now the ballot has shifted to become the education time in addition to the addition time. And so you're right, you'll have your mailers and your brochures and town hall and all that to let folks to drill down into the detail of what the renovations at Consolidated High School consist of. And you hope they avail themselves of that information.
I think you have two types of voters that go to the poll. I think you have those who know how they're going to vote on these propositions before they get there. And then you have those that don't necessarily even know those propositions are on there. So if you're the latter of those two, in my opinion, the option two gives you more information to make a decision.
That's what I was going to say. I like option two just for those people that have not been educated on it, that way they can see, because they're going to see a lot of money, but then when they see that list, they're like, oh, this is why.
Right. What is this $285 million for?
Right. And it's right there on the ballot.
Correct.
But these will probably be the last things on the ballot, correct? The last items on the ballot?
We're the last,
very on the
and
bottom?
these will be the last. Yes, sir.
And so we've read a lot, so they're either going to,
It shouldn't be a ballot like we had last November.
'Cause it's
when we
off-
did the
off election.
TRA. Correct.
So legally, listing of all candidates are required to come before measures. So yes, you'll find measures, including statewide constitutional amendments, will come towards the last. Now, where you end up on your local ballot, if there's other measures on there, I don't know.
We're
But
last.
yeah, I think y'all be last.
Anything else?
Just that we'll see the money impact of it in a second, right? With the, well, I mean, it's going to be 2 cents added to whatever.
Right, we estimated 2 cents whenever we were with the bond committee. Of course, there's some legislation that has changed, but I do feel like we can still work within those parameters, even with the legislative changes. We can schedule principal payments a little bit differently or whatever to make that fit. We were still interpreting what they passed last Friday, so.
Okay, so well, because I mean, we'll see that in a minute. I'll save any comments or questions till we look at the actual budget then.
Okay.
And just as a reminder, this item will be before you. The order of election will be an action item at the August 15th meeting, which is in front of the August 21st deadline to call the election. And then, we'll start telling the community about all these projects, and in October, folks will start voting. Anything else? All right.
Nope.
Thank you,
Appreciate
guys.
y'all. That brings us to item 2, consideration and discussion regarding TASB policy update 121. Dr. Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Horak, Dr. Harkrider, other members of the board. This evening, you'll find in your packet, I believe on the bottom, a copy of TASB Policy Update 121 Local Comparison Packet. You did receive this in transmittal, I believe, last Friday, and so this will be our first reading this evening, and then we would look to potentially adopt the proposed changes at our regularly scheduled meeting in August. So in this update, you will find 10 recommendations for changes to local school board policy. And so we'll just take a moment to go through those and provide an opportunity for any questions or information gathering that you might require prior to our August meeting. So we'll begin with the first policy proposed for a change, and that is CFB local regarding accounting inventories. This particular change is based on guidance from GASB that applies to reporting periods after June of this year. And so really we're looking at no change regarding the total amount of assets that would be included in the capitalization threshold, but it does have new language that the superintendent shall determine that threshold for a group of assets rather than just a singular item. The next policy is related to school resource officers, and you might be surprised when you initially see that the entire policy has been stricken. However, it has really just been relocated over to CKEC, which is on the subsequent page. So there's really no change to the actual text of the policy. It's just been relocated to a different numbering area within. The next policy is related to our buildings, grounds, and equipment management, CLB local. This is actually in response to an administrative code change. And really, while the policy is recommended for change, it doesn't impact us at this time because it's specifically related to residential property primarily used as student housing, which, as you all know, we do not have in College Station ISD. On the next page, you'll find CRF local, which is regarding insurance and annuities management. And so this is really just a policy template update. It is related to letters of reasonable assurance and does not impact any of our current practices. We do engage in that for those individuals who are not on a contract. Then we've got CVA local, which is facilities construction and competitive bidding. This policy does authorize the superintendent previously or designee. And within the policies over the last several years, TASB has recommended to remove or designee everywhere it is denoted because policy BJA local does authorize the superintendent to delegate, so it's not necessary to specify every time. And so not only CVA, but the next page CVB, they're recommending to strike or designee. I think those might have been some stragglers that they caught after having removed it in a number of other policies. The next policy, DEA local, is compensation and benefits. There are two particular changes in this. The first is related to the frequency of payments. It does not change how often we pay our employees. However, there was a note in the TASB update response that indicated that bi-monthly seemed a little confusing for some folks. And so they're recommending to say semi-monthly, so there's no confusion about every other month versus twice per month. And then on the next page, we're still in that same policy regarding premium pay. This is an area that probably, if it hadn't been for COVID, would have never been on the radar of TASB, but we have for probably ever paid employees that were required to work during closure time and a half. And what we learned during COVID is that a number of our hourly employees were able to work very effectively from home. And so this would specify that only those that are coming in to mitigate the reason for emergency would be paid time and a half. So for example, if there is some sort of weather event and we've got flooding in a building and our maintenance folks come in, time and a half. If a secretary needs to take care of some purchases at home, not really, because it's not necessary to mitigate the impact of the emergency. All right? They still, of course, get paid, just not at the time and a half rate. The next policy is FD local, and this is related to admissions. This particular change under proof of residency, you'll see there's a strike through on the annual basis, and the reason for that is that administrative code actually was deleted by the State Board of Education, and so they've replaced that with in accordance with administrative regulations, and that really is no change for us here in College Station ISD. We are requiring annual proof of residency now for our students. Also on FD, the next page at the very bottom, related to credits for students who are transferring into College Station ISD. If that student is homeless or in substitute care, then it's important that we make sure that we are awarding credit or proportionate credit appropriately as they come in and prior to enrollment. And I believe lastly, we are looking at policy FFI, specifically related to freedom from bullying. There are two new changes in this particular policy, the first of which references the minimum standards for bullying prevention. This is new. The minimum standards were actually proposed and adopted and published just this last spring. And there are a number of items related to those minimum standards that we have been working through as an administrative team and will continue to. A few examples of those are integrating research-based content to reduce bullying. That is, of course, age appropriate for both primary and secondary. We're primarily doing that through Character Strong, which we've talked a little bit about with you all, and we'll be bringing forward next month for your consideration and purchase. That particular program focuses on lots of skills that will help support these particular areas, things like empathy, honesty, compassion, courage, perseverance, responsibility, honesty. And so that is certainly something that we are moving forward in a very positive direction about. Those minimum standards also include things such as measuring positive school culture, which again, you all know we've been conducting surveys around our school culture over the last several years, and so that definitely meets that component of the requirement. Each campus is also going to be required to have a committee that really focuses in on some of these minimum standards and looking at that at the campus level, as well as a policy for reporting. We do have reporting systems at all of our campuses, whether it be Quick Tip at the elementary level or our P3 anonymous reporting system at secondary. And then lastly, we would be using a rubric or checklist, which we are currently using the one that is published by the Texas School Safety Center to assess the presence of bullying. And then lastly, on those minimum standards, we have some specific requirements related when students who are engaged in bullying or are being bullied are students with disabilities. And so that is what is being referenced when we're talking about those minimum standards in policy FFI. And then also within that same policy, there's a new requirement on the next page regarding periodic monitoring. And so that's something that is done in our student information system when campus administrators investigate and determine that there is an incident of bullying. There are special codes so that we're able to run reports and really evaluate not only the frequency, but locations and details around those events so that we can use that information to be better informed and further our prevention efforts. So those are the 10 local policies that are included in TASB Update 121. I would be happy to take any questions that you might have or gather any additional information you might need.
Everybody good? Thank you very much. Perfect. Brings us to item 3, consideration and discussion regarding the 23-24 budget and compensation. Ms. Draws.
Technology skills, right? It's really the test is if I can see the little icons at the bottom to find the right thing. So thank you, Dr. Harkrider, Mr. Horak, members of the board. We get to talk budget again. I think we've been doing this since about February, but a few other things to update you on. So we're going to talk about 23-24. I'm not going to really highlight anything on the current year. It hasn't really changed. So all of that information that we've been going over the last couple of months that haven't changed, I've moved that down to other information. So it's there if you want to look at it. And of course, if we want to go over it, we can, but we'll kind of skip that. But we're going to focus on 23-24 and the particularly compensation. That will be on the regular agenda tonight to ask for your approval on the proposed compensation plan. Also let you kind of take a quick look at child nutrition and debt service because those two funds will also have to be adopted by you as a board, and I don't want you to see it for the first time next month. So we'll go over all of that today. I thought this might be a good time to bring back the budget goals and objectives. We shared this with you, I believe, in March, but haven't really put it on a slide yet. So as we start getting closer to budget adoption time, thought it would be good to review those goals and objectives. But the first one is to recruit and retain high-quality workforce to support instruction. The second one is support quality instruction in the way of staffing, supplies, equipment, and services. To utilize data available in making budgetary recommendations that are in the best interest of the district. Maintain a financially healthy fund balance. And last is to continue to reduce the use of ESSER funds in support of the general fund because we've got one more year. ESSER 2 ends this September. But ESSER 3 is September 30, 2024. So those funds will no longer be available to us. And we are using every bit of it, not going to return any of it. Just as a recap also from last time, so the 88th regular legislative session had a lot of promise going in, but really of the bills that did pass, the only one that really affected school funding was the school safety bill. So the rest of those that did pass did not really affect our general fund budget in any way. So a lot of talk about school funding and teacher pay and focusing on those, but those did not pass. So the impact of that on the general fund was there was an increase in the guaranteed yield. But that was not done by this session. That has been planned in the prior session just through time of how much that guaranteed yield would change. What really affects College Station ISD and our funding is the basic allotment. This has not changed since 2019 when they really did an overhaul. So there's no increase in the basic allotment. The safety allotment increased from a $9.72 per student to $10 a student. In addition, we receive $15,000 per campus to be used on safety. And then the last thing is the requirement for all campuses to have at least one armed individual on site during regular school hours. So that is going to affect our budget as well. Then looking to Senate Bill 2. This was special session. The legislature last Friday passed 3 bills related specifically to tax relief, property tax relief. Senate Bill 2 is the one, it's in red because that's the one we're going to focus on that affects school districts. But Senate Bill 3 is franchise tax related to that. And then the House Joint Resolution is a constitutional amendment that will be on the ballot in November. That will basically allow these to happen. okay? But combined, it's estimated that these three bills are expected to cost the state $18 billion in property tax relief. But I think it's important to note that the 18 billion, there's really no additional revenue for school districts in this bill. It's going to change how revenue flows to the district from property taxes to state revenue, but the dollar amount's not changing. So kind of to look at Senate Bill 2, the first part of it is a reduction in our M&O tax rate. All districts are to reduce by 10.7 cents on top of the compression that was already being calculated. Again, this is contingent upon that voter approval in November, but we are instructed to calculate our tax rates as if it passed. Okay. But it is contingent upon November election. Okay. Then we have the homestead exemption. Increase the homestead exemption from 40,000 homestead to 100,000. Okay. There is a hold harmless provision for both the M&O and INS side, and that's real important because originally the INS was not being fully protected, so they did make some changes to that bill. But what that means is that the state will make up the difference that we are losing in property tax revenues because of this increase in exemption. For the debt service side, will only be held harmless if those bonds had been authorized by September 1, 2023. So for College Station, all of our debt so far, we will be held harmless on this particular provision, and they will make it up in state revenue. Still waiting or uncertain as to how to calculate all of the tax rates. I have been told that the appraisal district will need to provide us with two sets of certified values, one on the 40,000 and one on the 100,000. So we're still waiting on some final directions on everything, but I have informed them that they will need to provide two sets of data for us. And then the last part of Senate Bill 2 is a pilot program that would limit appraised values to a 20% growth on non-homestead properties. And this would only be if the property is over $5 million. And the first year this would take effect is 2024. But it's important to note there is no hold harmless provision in this particular clause for M&O or INS. So there's no hold harmlesses here.
Mr. Oz, when
Yes.
when it says districts, does it mean tax districts or school districts? So does it mean city, county, and school district, or
No,
just
this
school?
is just school districts.
So, okay, so the city still
Yeah,
gets their
as far as
taxes, the county still gets their taxes.
But and we don't get franchise tax, so that the appraisal limit, it could be all. I'm not going to speak to that. I haven't read the bill that thoroughly if it's all jurisdictions or not. So looking at our property value growth, we had that preliminary report that they have to provide us in May, which was at over 21% for College Station ISD. If you'll remember, part of this is because in the comptroller study, they came in and said that our properties were being undervalued. So they had to really look hard at this. But they estimated after appeals that we will be a little over 18%. I did ask last week to provide me with an update on their appeals process. What have we moved out of appeals to final? And it really still appears like this 18% is still going to hold. Their goal is to be almost complete before that July 25th date, and they're going to be very close, but they will provide us an estimate if they're not complete. But still appears that 18% appears to be a good percentage for us to work from. So I want to talk about compensation plan. We've touched on that before, but we haven't given you a lot of details, just parameters of what we were looking at. So we've prepared a proposed compensation plan that would take the teacher new hire pay scale, and we've kind of changed the terminology of that to make it clear. It's what we bring in new teachers to CSISD. Many of them will be on that scale, but that beginning teacher pay from 49,600 to 51,000. And then each teacher would receive at least a 2% increase from their base salary that they have for this year going into next year, at least 2%. Depending on where they are in the scale, we said it's a higher end, but no current teacher here is going to make less than what's published on that. So they will at least get a 2% increase as they move from one step to the other and they gain a year of experience. We also are factoring in a 2% of pay grade midpoint for all other employees of the district. That includes administrators, professionals, paraprofessionals, and auxiliary. And that would be on pay grade midpoint. Some of you may know that we have an attendance incentive program. We started that a couple of years ago for some specific employee groups, that being bus drivers, monitors, custodians, and cafeteria workers. These are staff people that we normally don't have a substitute pool for, but their attendance is vital because we have too many absences. We have everybody in the transportation department driving, then there's no one to man the office, and then we're still short. So their attendance is crucial, and custodians and food service workers as well. That has worked very well for us, so we'd like to continue that. We also implemented a bus driver hiring incentive across the state and nation. Bus drivers and CDLs are hard to get. After we implemented this, we've stayed close to fully staffed, so it's done very well. It's also got a piece in there for those who want to obtain their CDL, work as a monitor now, but obtain their CDL, so that's there. We've had the required language for the teacher incentive allotment, and you did approve in June the stipend schedule, but that's still part of our entire compensation plan. And then we've got one slight adjustment to that will be proposed tonight, but it's basically the same, but we want to present it with our entire compensation plan because it is part of it. I have to mention that there is rumor that we'll still have another special session that might address compensation. So in doing so, this particular plan will be contingent upon any modifications that might be necessary for that. And if the legislature comes through, that any requirements they have will supersede these. So the intent is this will be inclusive of that and not in addition to, so that we will be left funding all of it. So that will be on our compensation plan as well, that caveat. So this is a peek at the proposed salary schedule or teacher new hire schedule. You can see I've put what we had last year as Plan B. That was after the TRE that was in November. So beginning teacher pay was at $49,600, and we're proposing it go to $51,000. That creates a domino effect because you want to make sure you have a little bit of separator between each year of experience. So that's what that arrow shows. When we're calculating the percentage, I'm looking at if that teacher has been here on step one, going to step two, they'd be going from $49,820 to $51,500. So when we're looking at what percentage increase, that's what we're looking at, base salary to base salary. You'll also note that we expanded this new hire schedule from 26 years to 35. There's a lot of misunderstanding. We've been told that I have 30 years of experience and I haven't received a raise in 4 years, and that's not accurate. So trying to expand that to go all the way to 35. I think there still could be a little bit because someone with 30 years might say, well, I already make a little more than $66,810. So they're not going to go down, and they'll still receive a raise of 2% as well. So this is a minimum for those who are already in the district with these years of experience, if that makes sense. So the total plan cost is estimated to be almost $2.5 million for the 2% and some of the other changes that are within there. And then you'll recall about $432,500 in stipend changes. So the compensation plan in itself costs the general fund a little over $2.9 million. for roughly a 2% change plus the stipends. So now to look at general fund revenue and appropriations. I almost wanted to take this slide out, okay? So we've talked about a 1% growth all along. So now we talk about legislation, property value growth at 18%. But when you talk about the tax compression, I've been working on it and said maybe between 8 and 11 cents, which I have no template to tell me anything with Senate Bill 2 yet. It just came out Friday. But at 4 o'clock today, in a conversation, we were told that they need to make corrections to the template that we've been using. So that 8 and 11 cents is probably going to change, could be higher. So I almost threw this out, and Chuck convinced me they need to know this changes hourly right now. But if the concept holds for what they're saying, our estimates of revenue shouldn't be any different. It's just going to change where it's coming from property taxes to state revenues. So I still feel like even though that compressed tax rate that's listed here, I don't have a lot of confidence in that. I still have confidence in the total that we are projecting, if that makes sense. And then we have that little bit of safety that's in here. So, and then the guaranteed yield, so that basic allotment doesn't change. So what we're told to do is, at this point in time, I've prepared the estimates of revenue based on not Senate Bill 2, that additional 10 cents, because I don't have a resource to help me calculate that. And like I said, I'm not positive of the tax rate at this point either, but hopefully we'll get an update by tomorrow. That. Right, right. So here's the preliminary general fund revenue. And I have that arrow between property taxes and state revenue because we know that's going to change. The numbers between there, hopefully if it works the way it's supposed to, will be close to the same. We'll just change the areas. So I've really refined the revenue here and really tried to look at even some one-time revenue sources, make sure that it's there. Recapture is about at $1.8 million. So looking at that, the total revenue, and I've got heads in both places, almost 142 million after recapture. And again, then that additional 10.7 cent mandatory decline is not factored into here, but should hold the same. Then looking at the general fund expenditures, dropping in that 2.9 million in compensation. I've also refined some more of the inflationary items and kind of detailed them on there, like on the SRD. Looking at that, so we're looking at about 143.5 million in expenditures. Realizing that I still have to confirm some inflationary contracts. But we also don't have some of the safety budgetary items that we need to talk about tonight as well, a little bit later. So that would still need to be factored into here. But based on the information we have right now, appropriations will exceed revenue by around $1.7 million. The recapture is about 1.8 million.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
I have a feeling with some of these tax rate changes that they're doing and the corrections that they're making on our template, our revenue may go up and our recapture may go up. So we'll wait and see what happens. But about 1.6 million, and then we will be talking about that requirement of armed security officers tonight as well when you get some security reports. And we hopefully get some more confirmations in the next couple of weeks of some of our inflationary items, the biggest one being property and casualty insurance that I'm still waiting on, but I do have something factored in there. Looking at debt service, this will be our debt service requirements for next year. You can see about $29.45 million. The hold harmless that was going from the $25,000 to the $40,000 exemption that was passed the last legislative session brings us about $500,000. But I'm estimating at our current tax rate of 26.3 cents that we will be able to, or the district will be able to authorize about 7 million in early redemptions. That will result in savings to College Station as well as our taxpayers, because we'll be looking at paying off some debt early. And then child nutrition, still working on that, but the important thing here is to see that she's proposing a balanced budget. We were all fearful of, after the pandemic, and we went from everyone receives a meal free of charge to paying that our sales would go down. They really have not. I think many children ate and they found out we have really good food in the cafeteria, and they're continuing. So that's a good thing. So next steps. To review the compensation plan, and we're going to present that tonight as proposed. Then on July 25th, we should be getting our certified property values, at which point then I can submit the data to TEA, and they will calculate our maximum compressed tax rate to make sure that it's the same as I am calculating. The thing to note here is that TEA is supposed to notify us of that tax rate by August 5th. Okay, you've all said I might have to have a special meeting. Well, I have to run the advertisements 10 days prior. So for our regular meeting on August 15th, that date is August 5th. So I can tell you pretty much we're going to be asking for a special meeting to have the public hearing and adopt the budget and tax rate. The superintendent must prepare and propose a budget to you, the Board of Trustees, by August 20th of each year. It doesn't have to be adopted, but we have to have that proposed to you by that date. And we've kind of been doing that all along, so it won't be a problem with that. And then the deadline to adopt the budget is August 31st, with that requirement of website and newspaper postings 10 days prior. So pretty much I have moved that date. So I'm looking at keeping it on a Tuesday, but 1 week later, that would be August 22nd. We still have some time to decide if that's the right date that most of you can attend. We can get a quorum and what time, but I will have to post that in the advertisement that happens. So just I'd like for you in the next few days, if you'll check your calendars and make sure that that date is available to you, and if not, what other dates we might be able to look at for that. So with that, I will open it up to any questions that you might have.
Amy, remind me on the master's stipend, that's annually?
It's $2,000 annually.
Annual,
Yes,
okay, thank you.
on top of the teacher salary schedule.
Thank you.
Just wanted to make sure I understood the tax rate implication a little bit more. Obviously, as you said, you don't know for sure what's going to happen, but and obviously our revenue side is going to basically be the same, whether it's coming from our local taxpayers or coming from the state. I understand that, but there is an implication to the taxpayers, obviously. That's why there's the tax relief. And I think it also then ties back into obviously us going and talking to asking our voters to then possibly increase the tax rate with the bond. So that's my thoughts earlier, right? So, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. The way I'm looking at it is that, whatever that number is, maybe it's 10, 12 cents, whatever, that it's going to go down because of the tax relief. It will go down, and we will ask for a little bit of that back. Correct. For the bond. That's the general way to look at that, correct?
It is, and you also have to remember the last time it was all in the same tax year. This was going to be the bond. The first year that increase would hit would be 2024, one more year. This is current year. But under current law, there's going to remain compression again. So just totally different numbers. This 10.7 cents is a one-time. So that additional won't happen, but they're mandating 10.7 on top of the compression. So it's going to be, last year it was 7 cents. It's going to be a lot higher.
And you mentioned some of our INS potentially being our previous INS being bought down, right?
Well, that would be with our current 26.3 cents that we will be able to pay off some of that higher interest debt, giving capacity for this future bond should the taxpayers approve it as
Okay,
well.
okay.
So, yeah, what I'm proposing is we leave it at 26.3 cents and pay off some of that high interest debt and save the taxpayers in the district.
We'll also work with our bond counsel, so when we go out to give information to the voters on the tax rate implications, they can run scenarios of households of 300, 500, 700,000, and what that 2 cents is gonna do. So sometimes when you see that, you think 2 cents, oh, it's a lot, but when you really get down to it, it's a few $100s, a year, depending on the size of your house.
And so, Mr. Otts, to review compression, because that's the most confusing part for me. Compression is there to ensure that the school district, despite our performance, despite our voters' wishes, is restricted to the same amount of revenue as years prior.
Basically, yes.
So people move here because we have good schools. Property values go up because that demands, and we're not allowed to participate in that revenue.
Yeah.
And then the state says our property tax or property values are not high enough. Is that what they're saying?
That's what they've said.
Thank you.
But neither of them really increases. The only way we get more money, because we're gonna get more total money if we have a higher enrollment, because we get funded based on average daily attendance, right? But more kids mean more costs. So to change that basic allotment is what needs to be done to bring in additional total revenue to the district, total available capacity and revenue, and that has not changed.
And that's why in our scenario, we have been encouraging legislators, and it has been talked about this session for the first time, of funding us on enrollment. Our enrollment's 94%, we staff on 100%. So that 6% we're missing out, and times that across the entire state of Texas, that's a lot of money school districts aren't getting.
Yeah. I'm going to correct myself. The other way is with what College Station did last year, and that's with the VATRE. If we can increase that rate before the compression, and we have now maxed out on the state funds and anything else we would ask our taxpayers, there would be additional recapture, and the state doesn't do any enrichment added to it. So basically what we went, College Station went for maximized our state revenue and minimized recapture. But we'd have to go back to the voters. That's the other way, is to increase that tax rate with another VATRE.
No,
which we're
I
not
think y'all have done
considering.
great with the hand we're dealt with the rules and the using this money for that and this money for the other thing. The stuff that you, or Dr. Perry, put together as far as compensation, managing the budget, you've been very accurate, which I appreciate. And you're really squeezing blood from a stone there. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I just want to follow up. We talked about a little bit last month about what you're saying about being able to go to the voters for money for teachers, right? Because I hear that from people like, if we go out and ask for a bond, could we go out and ask for more money for our teachers? I would like to do that too, but you just said we really cannot do that at this point. The state does not really allow us to without giving more money back to the state, right?
Yeah,
Without
so-
giving
right.
recapture back,
So the
a part of that.
recapture, we do have recapture, and I'm estimating 1.8 million. It would be 1.8 million if we, with that VATRE that we just passed, or without it. So we have no more recapture because of those pennies. If we had asked for, instead of 3 cents, 4, 5, or 6 cents, that 1.8 would have grown. And we would have we also got some matching state aid for those 3 pennies. If you'll recall, with the 3 pennies, we got about $5 million for those 3 pennies, of which only a little over 3 million was property tax revenues. The rest came from the state. So we are maximizing our state revenue with what our voters generously approve for us.
Right. And I just even follow that. My thought process along that is that the bond actually not only helps our students, to me, it actually helps our teachers very
Absolutely.
much as well. Not
With our
only because
facilities.
of the facilities,
But technology.
but also because if we do not have a bond approved, in many cases, we would have to take more money for many of those items from our general fund.
Right.
So,
We still have
and-
deferred maintenance. We have technology in this bond that our staff are benefiting from. So absolutely.
So again, and then that just to me ties in here to the compensation plan that I am glad we are able to at least at a minimum offer that 2% raise for our staff and our teachers. So I wish the legislature would have helped us provide more, but at least,
Yeah.
at least it's something.
So some clarity on the compensation plan, how I understand it. If I'm wrong, tell me, it's fine. Legislation passes, let's say all teachers get 10% raise. We've given 2, so technically there's 8 that we're getting back.
Correct.
It's not an additional 10.
Right, no,
I just wanna
if they
clarify.
approve 10, or 10, and we've already given 2, there would be an additional 8%. Now, usually it's with that and benefits, but that's a very simple model to think
Right,
about.
yeah, I'm trying to keep
Right,
it as simple as
generalized,
possible.
correct.
Anything else? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll bring us to item 4, consideration and discussion regarding progress and next steps with CSISD Strategic Design Plan. We have Tiffany and Stormy to present, and Dr. Perry, sorry.
The whole crew.
We're there.
All right, good evening, Mr. Horak, Dr. Harkrider, and members of the board. We are excited to close out the workshop this evening with highlighting the great work that has happened around our district in the last year with the second year of implementing our strategic plan. As you're aware, back in May of 2021, we convened a large community-based committee to reframe our vision and create our instructional framework, the Framework for Success. And this group also created these 6 goals, which are at the root of our district improvement plan and our strategic plan for the next 3 to 5 years. So we're going to give some highlights this evening of that work. I've provided for you this evening the final copy of last year's district improvement plan, which includes all of the progress monitoring tools. And just a quick reorientation to this format. We start at the top with our strategic plan goals. Remember that these are aspirational and it will take us some time. And so our intent in 1 year was not to achieve that goal. Each of those goals has several specific results that are included, which are those key markers of progress. And then yearly, what you will see change the most over time will be those strategies and action steps, what we wish to accomplish in 1 school year. And then once again, you'll see those progress monitoring measures there from the beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of year, and then those indicators there. And certainly here at the end of the year, our great desire would be for everything to be accomplished, at the very least for most to have considerable progress. And certainly you'll see that we have achieved that as we work our way through. We are not going to go action step by action step this evening. So we'll give a quick overview of each goal, specific results, and then really hone in on telling you about some of the key highlights and information. Okay. So as far as our progress here for year 2, for goal 1, which is about enhancing effective instructional practices and implementing innovative and personalized learning experiences, we have done a lot of work this year on directing experiences around the Framework for Success, our instructional framework, to meet learner needs. Also to create a system of personalized professional learning for educators, and to engage in some processes for individual goal setting and progress monitoring. And so when we look at those highlights here on this screen, you will see the work that has been accomplished over the last 2 years actually for our elementary school campuses. In the first column, you'll see their year 1 phase of the instructional framework, along with the instructional best practices that they implemented, as well as then their year 2 focuses for each of those. And we are very proud to say that all 19 of our campuses made tremendous progress really in using the Framework for Success to design learning experiences for our students and to give them opportunities to engage in their learning in a variety of ways. We also in this goal are really focusing on professional learning, and Mr. Mann has compiled some information to share here about our work this year. As you know, he heads off our leadership development programs, which include our principal and assistant principal fellowships and collabs and so forth. And so while you can see on this slide the total number of participants we have had, I think this next slide is pretty powerful to show the evidence of impact that those programs have had for us as a school district. So from on that AP Fellows program, for example, of the 12 participants, we were able to hire 4 of those folks to become assistant principals for us next year. Similarly, when we look at our Aspiring Administrator Institute, which is a first-year program, we also hired an assistant principal from that program, and also our new assistant director of CTE is included as someone who went through that program. And then you can also see how we were able to promote some folks into some teacher leadership positions that are incredibly important for the work that we do on our campuses. Also related to professional learning, you can see that while we are going to continue to strive to differentiate learning experiences for our staff and also for our students, we had over 781 courses for professional learning offered, and each of our staff members earned an average of 24 hours of professional learning through the course of the school year. And so I think that really showcases our commitment to ongoing professional learning for ourselves as professionals as well. All right, so as far as our next steps, projecting forward toward next school year, we will continue that implementation of the Framework for Success by adding a 3rd phase out of the 6 phases of the instructional framework. And we're really working with our campuses to emphasize how each of the phases of the instructional framework really is not standalone. They impact one another and interrelate, and we want to make sure that our staff are seeing those connections. We've also chosen to move the instructional best practice focus areas from where they used to be housed in action steps related to Goal 2 because they pair so closely to the Framework for Success. We talk about them hand in hand. We are putting them in the plan in the same place. So you'll notice that when you're looking at next year's plan. And then as a district, we are going to focus on the instructional best practices of standards alignment and assessment and formative feedback through our work that we do in the curriculum and instruction department and making sure that we really are aligned to the standards that the state has set for us and that we are giving students really clear feedback on their progress in achieving those standards and those skills. And that feeds very nicely into our next steps with implementing professional learning communities in our school district. We will have one cohort which will feature 7 campuses who are all in, if you will, on implementation for professional learning communities. Next year we have 4 elementaries and 3 secondary campuses, but all of our curriculum and instruction staff as well as all of our principals are participating in ongoing professional learning with Solution Tree to make sure that we are building that common foundational knowledge whenever we are looking forward at what the next steps are to move forward with our strategic plan. We feel very confident that implementing professional learning communities is the next step to make it all happen. And so we're really excited about this work. We'll also continue to differentiate the professional learning, like as we have already shown you that we have. And then we're excited to launch the curriculum management plan. And this is a document which we'll share with you soon that really takes a lot of things that are in different places right now, puts it in one book and makes it really clear about what all of our roles and responsibilities are with ensuring that we are teaching a viable curriculum that is aligned with our state standards. And so we're really excited to share that work.
All right, I'm going to take over for Goal 2. You'll remember that Goal 2 really has to do with elevating the outcomes of our historically underperforming student groups. And so, as Tiffany said, we won't belabor all of the progress because here on this particular part of the document because we're really going to talk about some highlights from the year. One big important piece of this is working through our MTSS program. So you'll remember that MTSS stands for Multi-Tiered Systems of Support, and it is a mechanism through which we ensure that all of our students are progressing toward being on grade level in each part of our curriculum. And additionally, we really have just been working on research-based best practices in Tier 1 instruction in all of our classrooms. So ensuring that every student in every classroom is receiving instruction that is based in research and that is a best practice. So some highlights here for Goal 2. Tiffany talked a little bit already about the curriculum management plan. You can see a couple of snips. Those first 2 there are from the curriculum management plan that you'll be seeing soon. This document really is a method that we can use to ensure that every single student on every single campus is receiving that guaranteed and viable curriculum and that it is being implemented with fidelity for every student. And then we've also highlighted here from Forest Ridge Elementary, this is one of their professional learning days where they really focused on the instructional best practice that they selected for their students this past year. So this is just one example every single one of our campuses really honed in on what the best practices they determined would be most powerful for their students this past year. Additionally, and this is really exciting, you may have noticed that on the slide that talks about MTSS development, we have a lot of like almost complete, not as many green check marks. And part of that is because we really took a really close look to make sure that we are doing this well. And some of that meant to slow down a little bit. So one of the things that we will be ready to launch by the time school starts is our new academic intervention MTSS website, which essentially takes a lot of the components that were previously in a handbook that was a Google Doc that you could scroll through, and made it interactive and made it really accessible and clear for teachers. With addition of what you see there are some samples of playbooks. So if you just look at the larger version there, that will exist for both our early reading fundamentals and our math fundamentals whenever we begin the school year. And it really is made to help a teacher. What skill is my student struggling with? What's my specific area of concern? These are the resources that we have right now ready for you that you can use to help intervene with that student. Here's a way that you can write a goal for that student, and here's how you can progress monitor toward that. So our goal is that this is really easy and useful for our teachers. And this is actually a repeat of some of the information you saw last month when we talked about our House Bill 3 goals, but those really specifically speak to the success of our historically underperforming student groups as well. We had many areas where our students showed great increase, and I'll just highlight fifth grade showed more growth in each student group in reading. So every single student group showed an increase. We had something similar in math as well. And then in science, I still get excited. The emergent bilingual group showed between a 7 and 20% increase in growth in all grade levels except one. So that is evidence that we are really increasing the outcomes for all of our students. And then you've got some end of course exam information here. Our performance increased in the economically disadvantaged, emergent bilingual, special education, and African American student groups on all of their end of course exams. We were above the state average on all end of course exams for both special education and Hispanic student groups. So those are great successes, and they really speak to the work of our teachers and administrators. And then as a reminder, we will not have any STAR data for grades 3 through 8 until we hope August 11th. So we haven't included any additional detail here about that.
Which is beyond our control, right?
That is beyond
Yep.
our control, yes.
Just documenting.
And as we look at going forward into next steps for Goal 2, we will continue to train and support our staff in using data to differentiate instruction. That professional learning community work that Tiffany spoke about will be a big part of that training and that really use of data to inform the work that we're doing in the classroom. We will be working toward implementing those aligned MTSS practices. So it's one thing to have a really great tool. It's another thing to train folks on how to use it and really work side by side with them as they learn how to use that tool. So we will be doing that throughout the coming year. And then our next big step will be behavioral MTSS. So once we have really made great progress with our academic plan, then our goal is to next begin working on the behavior plan.
All right, goal 3 shifts our focus away from the academic side of learning and really more into that relationship building and character education aspect. And so our goal here is to enrich student school experiences by strengthening relationships between students, staff, and families. We are working here to promote positive relationships, as I mentioned, really look for that engagement between the school district and community through outreach activities both on and off campus. And we have a lot of examples that we have shared with you all throughout the year. And so we have a few more here tonight. For example, Rock Prairie has Reading at the Park, where families are invited to join them in a casual school setting for that early learning and support with reading. For the first year, CSHS implemented the Cougar Commitment Carnival to celebrate seniors, to invite families up to celebrate what college or career, what post-secondary choices our seniors have made through that school event. And then we have a picture once again from the Junior Achievement Bowl-a-thon, which all of our campuses participate in, but this showcases our staff from Pebble Creek Elementary specifically participating in that event. We also have emphasized, in addition to community involvement, to acts of service. And so Pecan Trail Intermediate, for example, has every fifth and sixth grader on that campus participate in community service. So what a tremendous opportunity for our students at a fundamental age to learn about serving others. And so that's exciting. We're hoping we can replicate that across more of our campuses to get more kids, 100% of a campus, participating in such things. The second example is from our FFA students participating in the special edition livestock show at the Brazos County Youth Livestock Exposition, which is a program which allows our students with special needs to get to participate and show livestock. And then we have another example of Southwood Valley students wrapping those Christmas presents for our students at Chrissy's Closet. And so really, this emphasis on service has made a huge impact on our school district and our kids in our community this year. So as we move forward, we are going to, related to Goal 3, implement our character education curriculum, which Dr. Perry mentioned during workshop, which is Character Strong. And it is one of our action items in the board meeting tonight to officially purchase that so we can move forward with that implementation. We are going to take on another specific result, in which we will assess our mentoring program specifically and determine what types of supports may be needed to be added for our underperforming and at-risk students. And then we're also going to curate a list of community resources for admin and counselors to have some quick access tools to make sure that we know how to link our families with the community resources to help them meet their needs. And then we're, of course, going to continue this foundational work that we've had with our community outreach and service activities, that expectation will continue as we move forward for our campuses. And this dovetails nicely into Goal 4, which then really moves from our relationships with our families to our intentional partnerships with local businesses, community organizations, and with higher education agencies. So this year really was a lot of work behind the scenes on gathering information about the current state of our partnerships with those folks who I mentioned. And so we have explored those needs and are excited about our opportunities to move forward. And so I'd shared in the mid-year update that Mr. Glenwinkle shared this partnership survey, and we would like to highlight tonight some of those existing partnerships that we have. So in the realm of academic partnerships, we have so many different connections to the university. The featured photo is of Project Search, which is our partnership with Baylor Scott and White, which enables some of our students with disabilities to work every day in that setting and to have the potential for gainful employment at the end of those experiences. And so we have quite a few students who have all of them, 100%. 100% this year. Yes. Getting paid. It's very exciting. We also have lots of opportunities for folks in the community to come volunteer with us on our campuses, such as our Watchdogs programs, which are at most of our elementary schools. I see Dr. Payne's nodding. I think I've seen him as a watchdog before. Yeah, of course. I'm sorry, and you too, Mr. Horak. And Mr. Decker, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said anything to highlight one person. We have a lot of good watchdogs on the board.
You did fine. You did fine.
Okay, thank you. The partnership with the Brazos Valley Food Bank is really important for us, with all of our PTOs contributing to that as well, and so many different things in the realm of volunteerism. Certainly after kind of the State of the Union with the budget, monetary partnerships are incredibly important to the work that we're able to do here in the district. We rely so much on our PTOs and our booster clubs and on our education foundation to be able to supplement the work that we are able to do and give that little bit of extra for our students and for our staff. And I would be remiss if I didn't take another opportunity to point out that donation from the Adam Family Foundation for $1 million for the safety and security of our students. And so we're very grateful for those partnerships that exist. And then we certainly as a district want to make sure we continue to give back. And so we mentioned several things earlier with those service projects that each campus does. But here is another example of what service can look like, and it's not always giving something tangible. In this case, we opened a little lending library outside of Greens Prairie to support early literacy, and so they're passing along their books and sharing that, and it's out front. You can see we had a community speaker come in to help with that lunch as well. And then as far as identified needs from that survey, we know that we need to define and create more opportunities for tutors and mentors to really engage with our students. We're looking for opportunities for more community speakers in classes with real life applications. There's an example here of our Brazos County District Attorney Jarvis Parsons speaking directly to some students. He also provided some great professional learning for our teachers this year in various campuses. We know that we're always in need and looking for funding and alternative sources to be able to supplement our funding. And then most importantly, a mechanism to link those needs with the community so they can see what those are and readily help us. And so really that feeds into our focuses for next year. At this point, Chuck is finalizing that committee membership to meet regularly with the community partnership team throughout next year and to research and develop a system to streamline volunteer and service opportunities and really make it readily accessible from the district website so that we can increase that mentorship and tutoring and those types of experiences as well. Okay. Do you want the clicker or you like the mouse?
Can I just clarify that
Yes.
last statement? Sorry, before you give us the mic. Is it, because I think we mentioned both, is it for more of our community to come in and volunteer and serve us, or more of our students to go out and volunteer and serve in the community? Which or both?
So really both, but the system that we really have identified that we need is opportunities for the community to see how they can help us and what opportunities we have. I'll give an example. We have, with all of the required accelerated instruction tutoring, we have opportunities to bring people in, but they don't necessarily know without emailing 19 different campuses what those needs are. And so really we're looking to have one platform where they can see what we are needing, how many folks, and kind of have a one-stop shop to set up those things first. And then kind of that next layer would be a streamlined approach for students to be able to volunteer in our community.
Perfect, thanks. Okay. And I agree, it is needed. It's, a lot of us know how to go to our own campus, but even if we don't have a campus, I mean, where do you go? So I think, I like that.
All right. Moving on to goal 5, I would be remiss if I didn't just mention how difficult it is to follow all those incredible things with technology ecosystems and laptops and firewalls. So here we go. This is a goal that I have to say, after a few years of living with it, I don't know that it would have been a part of our plan if we had been anywhere near where we needed to be in terms of technology in our classrooms and access to devices in order to really enhance instruction. And you'll see when we get to goal 6 really more the impact of that. But just as an overview, the things that we really focused on during this last school year were increasing the number of devices. And we were able to make great progress in that. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like. We're working on finalizing that multi-year purchase plan, which is of course contingent on that ongoing funding. But next, we really wanted to make sure not only do we have the devices, but we have the infrastructure to support not only the devices we have, but those that we are adding, including the additional need for Wi-Fi. And so we did not make as much progress in this particular area as we hoped. And the primary reason for that is that this was an ongoing supply chain issue. We approved and ordered those access points early in the school year and really just started to receive them towards the very end. And so this summer we have continued to work on this one and make a lot of really great progress. And so that is the reason that you didn't see as much on that particular item. The next 5.3 was really about safety and security of our infrastructure. And we know that we can do a lot to harden our firewall and do a lot of things on the back end, but ultimately all of that is for naught if our employees don't understand cyber safety and how their behavior can impact the cybersecurity of our data and our information. And so we have implemented over the last few years those periodic and random assessments so that if an employee receives an email and they click it, they get immediate feedback that is not something they should have clicked. We are actually training in this next school year with a much improved program in terms of providing that behavioral training and information to our employees. So we anticipate that that will be well received as well regarding this particular area. So just to highlight, we were able to make great progress on this area thanks to the generosity of our CSISD voters with that 2021 bond. Technology was included in both that general proposition or Prop A to focus on infrastructure needs, the upgrades to the network, the audiovisual equipment that's attached to the wall, those smart panels across the district, with the exception of our 5 newest campuses that had, of course, newer smart boards, and then the Wi-Fi improvements that I mentioned. Prop B specifically, that 4.26 million was for laptops, both for our teachers, which is the first time our teachers have ever received laptops. We used desktops prior to that, and then lots more student devices. So we actually purchased and deployed 3,000 student laptops during this last school year, and we deployed those teacher laptops through all the way, pre-K through 12, and then provided upgrades to computer labs across the entire district. Also important to note that technology impacts fine arts, and so we have almost completed those upgrades at secondary campuses, not only in our facilities like band halls, orchestra halls, choir rooms, but those auditoriums, gyms, and cafetoriums, and then of course the renovations that are happening this summer in the auditorium and in Consolidated High School encompass some of the technological needs as well. So our next steps in this particular area are to continue to purchase devices and deploy them. We do still have a little bit of funding left for that Prop B, and so you'll see some purchases in the coming months there. And as you heard earlier in the workshop, we'll be looking towards the potential for voter approval for ongoing purchase and increased infusion. And then those infrastructure upgrades will of course continue, as well as our safety and security efforts. And ultimately, we're going to be moving into other aspects of this goal that we haven't looked at yet, which include looking at our staffing models and systems to support technology needs.
Back to me for the last of our 6 goals here. So goal 6 is that we will transform the learner experience through purposeful integration of instructional technology to augment the teaching and learning process. So while Molly talked with you about the infrastructure, this is about what the use of technology looks like in the classroom. So the first portion of Goal 6 is about developing and utilizing a comprehensive instructional technology plan for our teachers and staff, and then additionally having a comprehensive plan for our students at all levels. And then the next part is really just providing the support for all of those plans. So you can have a plan, but you have to be able to support and be available whenever either things go awry or whenever people are excited and want to move forward in their use of technology. So our big highlights here really are about that meaningful technology integration all across the district. And I think our best example of that is really with our ed tech cohorts. We have some teachers across the district who have, through Education Foundation grants and some other funding, been able to go to a 1-to-1 student to device ratio in their classrooms. And with that has come really a very high expectation for what technology integration looks like. Natalie Vela, who is our digital learning coordinator for the district, and Lauren Finkner, who is our instructional specialist, they are in those classrooms working with those teachers, working through ideas and really helping them see how their classrooms can be transformed through the use of technology. And so they have really spent a great deal of time this year in that work and have big plans for the expansion of that going into next year for any new folks who are added to that 1-to-1 ed tech cohort and a continuation of the people from the year before. So this is really sort of a grassroots way to show how technology can really impact our students. In addition to that, we're really working through what our digital citizenship curriculum currently looks like, how it is currently being implemented, so that we can make sure that that is being done the best way possible as we go forward into next year. We know how important that is. We do have a resource that we use for that through Nearpod, but really evaluating the status of that to make sure if there are any adjustments that need to be made, we can do so. So as we go into next year, it is about continuing to build that capacity for technology integration. Natalie and Lauren are but two people, but they have tentacles of the people using all the technology all throughout the district. And so that's been really exciting to see. We do have new technology application TEKs that need to be fully implemented by 24-25. And so we will spend some time throughout the next school year looking at the best way to do that. It is one of those things to make sure that we are allocating appropriate time during student schedules to all the things, tech apps being one of them. So Natalie and Lauren will definitely spend some time looking at that. And then as I spoke about, evaluating those current digital citizenship practices and continuing to support teachers as they integrate digital learning as we hopefully continue to increase the amount of technology that our teachers and students have access to.
So in closing here, just a reminder that our DIC, or District Education Improvement Council, is our committee comprised of teachers, administrators, community members, and parents that really monitors the progress of our DIP and strategic plan throughout the year. And each time we have had the opportunity for them to provide feedback, we've consistently been hearing about how this work is connecting the district and that they are seeing this work across all of our campuses. And we're really excited and proud of our work for year 2 of our strategic plan, and really excited for year 3 because the foundations that we've laid over the last 2 years, I think we're really going to start seeing some gains out of year 3 based on that. And so with that, we're happy to answer any questions or provide any additional information.
I just want to say, with goal 3, the character building and relationship piece, I am still so glad that we put that on the strategic plan, that was included. And I love seeing all of that, and I'm amazed at how creative our campuses are getting with what they're doing with their campuses and with the community. So I love seeing all that, and I hope they're sharing all those ideas with one another and whatnot, just because that's good stuff, and that's good PR for our district as well, right? So parents and the community seeing all these great kids that we have here and what we're doing. And then also, I like hearing about the plans for Goal 4 with the community, having that, because you said that y'all are trying to set up something to where business owners or whatever can find how they're needed, right? Is that, okay, good. Because I think that I know of a couple businesses have said, they're like, hey, I have all these people that work for me, and I need to provide them with more purpose, right? And so they want to start programs within their businesses where they have their employees giving back. And the school district is one of the ways they've, said, hey, I want to do this. So I love that's being worked on, and so that businesses can also, and again, that's great PR for our district because we get these people in and they see how wonderful our spaces are and how wonderful our teachers and kids are. So I'm really excited about all of this, and I like the comments from the teachers as well, that they like the connections. So thanks.
I have a specific question, but then general comments too. Let me do the specific one first. Specific on I guess it's goal 6, the device in the cohort, the educating cohorts with the one-to-one devices. Keep hearing very positive things about it, right? You guys are sharing positive things about it. I guess the question then for me and really for the board then is, when do we talk about, or do we need to talk about explicitly saying we need to do this for more classrooms, and we need to make, do we need to be looking at some specific data that's telling us it's really working, and kind of us be thinking about what are our next steps. I mean, part of it may be another bond, right? But in talking about how far that gets us towards one-to-one. So.
This actually really became part of the conversation in our long-range facilities planning discussion, and we brought forth several different options to that committee regarding a potential proposition specifically for additional technology. And one of those was that we would have a classroom set for every 2 classrooms, and one was that for every core classroom, we would have a classroom set of devices. And it was really fascinating to hear the conversations around the room, because we had students at those tables and they were able to really speak to the impact of having that technology readily available and ultimately very easily, in fact, swayed the committee towards the classroom set for all of our core content classrooms. And so that is something that that particular long-range facilities planning committee felt was important. And so we are going to be proposing that. I don't know that I would say that gets us to one-to-one in the traditional sense of every student having their own device, but having access in the classroom would be the goal so that we really can make incredible progress on goal 6 with that infusion of instructional technology in really meaningful ways.
Wonderful, thanks. And then I guess just big picture, obviously love all the focused work that the strategic design plan brings to the district, and obviously lots of green checks, more and more. I just wanted to look forward to when, we got year 3 ahead of us. When does it make sense, like from your eyes, for us to start, and I don't say redoing, but revisiting, retweaking, maybe, what are we missing any goals? Are we missing any other things that, that we really need to look at, and how maybe you would suggest we go about doing that moving forward?
Honestly, I think any of us could probably answer this particular plan. I think, having gone through the annual review process now twice, we see not only have we made really great progress in a number of areas, but there are a lot of things that we still have work to do on. Honestly, I think this time next year, we'll have a much more clearer picture of that because, like these ladies mentioned, we have such a strong foundation across a number of these goals. And I do anticipate that we may be at a point then to say, we really don't particularly need this anymore, but we need to push forward here. So ask us that again next year if we don't already bring it forward.
Awesome, that's kind of what I figured, but that's, I wanted to make sure we have that on our radar. And I'm going to add one other little thought on these, and I'm not asking us to necessarily redo it, to do it now, but next time around, I think we when we do this activity, need to think a little bit more precisely about how we measure the outcome of some of these goals, as opposed to just determine, to me, I see we've determined very important activities that we need to do, but we're kind of just checking off, do we do those activities, as opposed to measuring the results. Goal 2 is very easy to measure results, right? Some of them are easy, right? But some of them are harder to measure, the results. Did every kid do a community service event, or something like that? And so some are easier than others. I would like us to look a little bit more on measuring those outcomes moving forward.
So we are on the same page on that as we are looking forward toward next year. Starting with our conversation with DIC back in May, we provided them opportunities to talk about those specific measures. What evidence of impact would we see if these action steps are successfully doing what we want them to do? And so I shared the current draft of next year's district improvement plan with you all, and you'll notice at the beginning there's a new feature which includes a list of evidence of impact of the work, which is based on the feedback from the DEIC, our campus principals, as well, which really gets into more of that numerical, measurable lens of using those metrics. So we're headed that direction.
Wonderful. I love the term, the evidence. And again, thank you all for all this.
Great job.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, thank y'all very much. That brings us to item 5, consideration and discussion regarding setting a date for a joint meeting with the City of College Station City Council. I believe a doodle form was sent out. I don't know that we had consensus for one specific date. I think in talking with Dr. Perry about this a little bit, and some of you all, I would strongly recommend that we find a date that all of us can be in attendance at that, just because of the sheer nature of it being a first-time meeting, and then 2, so that we can have some input and then obviously receive any feedback from our city council members. So I think what we're going to do is try to reach out to the city to gain some additional dates beyond what we had on the form, and throw those out to everybody and see what those look like. I know we have talked about possibly pairing up with maybe their city council meeting and meeting before that, or vice versa, having them come here and meet up with us before our workshop and board meeting. So that might be a little bit more along the lines of what we might be able to do. So we're going to table that and not actually set a date right now and just kind of see how this plays out. So if that works for everybody. Okay. Other than that, that brings us to item E, adjournment. We'd like to thank Ms. Nolan for joining us as we begin here. I'd like to welcome everybody, call to order our regularly scheduled board meeting, July 18th, 2023, 7 p.m. Maybe 7:01 due to some delays, but brings us to item B, declaration of a quorum. We have 6 members present, 1 absent. Welcome everybody. Brings us to item C1, recognitions, or C1, recognitions, pledges of allegiance to the American flag and Texas flag, and moment of silence. And I believe, is it Miss Luther that's coming? Okay.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Luther, and I'm the coordinator for our extended school year program. With me, I have Brett and I have Garrett. I wanted to tell you a little bit about Brett. Brett's been at ESY, and he really loves making breakfast in the mornings, biscuits and waffles and eggs, right? And he loves giving everybody high fives and saying hello. And this is Garrett. There you go. That's, yep, all the high fives and hellos. And this is Garrett. Garrett has been loving, they've been getting to go to HEB on Thursdays. Garrett loves going to HEB. He loves to buy watermelon, right? And he likes to know all of the workers' names so that he can greet them when they go. All right? Right, Garrett? Yeah. Right. Okay, so we're going to turn and say the pledges of allegiance. Will you please join us? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Silent.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. We're going to take a picture. Can you take a picture with us? Get your picture with us. Right up. Follow your butt. Maddie.
I'm a diva.
Here we go. Nice job.
I'm going to backtrack before we move to C2 because the summer gets away from me. Welcome to this meeting of the College Station Independent School District Board of Trustees. We're elected at large to represent the interests of our community and our state in educating our students. Our mission for our students in this district is success each life, each day, each hour. We adhere to all pertinent laws, policies, and procedures in posting agendas and conducting our meetings. The detailed agenda information was made available to us at least 72 hours in advance. We've all come to this meeting informed and prepared. We just completed a workshop meeting where we heard reports and discussed much of the information needed to make decisions in either this meeting or in upcoming meetings. This is a meeting of the 7 trustees in a public setting rather than a public meeting. As such, public comment is included on the agenda at a specific time and requires us to listen rather than take action so as to abide by the Open Meetings Act. We are pleased that you have taken the time this evening to join us. We are very proud of this school district. Thank you for your interest in and support of our students. We will jump ahead to C2, recognize the artwork by our extended school year here at the back of our boardroom. I think we had some 4th of July artwork that I saw earlier tonight when I was here. So make sure y'all check that out before you head out. Brings us item D1, board reports. I don't know that we really have any Anybody?
Actually, I just want to say I forgot last month to say an update about Education Foundation. You didn't cover for me. Or, since we're the two.
Kim.
All right. I just want to point out that that week before the June meeting, the Education Foundation did have their summer meeting where they kind of have a retreat. Some of it's planning, but the other activity we did back in June was the Clifton Strengths, where it was led by Dr. Mann, which was interesting. Mr. Horak and I ended up in the same quadrant.
Holy cow.
I know, exactly. And I guess then the other things moving forward is that you're just planning for next year. It's going to be the 25th anniversary year of the Education Foundation, so that's exciting, and with lots more wonderful events and activities to help support our schools over the years. That's it.
Perfect.
And I do have some numbers to share from Head Start Council. So the closeout for the 22-23 year, we had 248 total Head Start students that were served. Say that fast. 320 total pre-K students, and the attendance for this year was 83.22% for Head Start. Pre-K attendance was 84%. And for this upcoming school year, for 23-24, 155 Head Start students have accepted their placement, and then accepted 135 pre-K students. So that's a total of 290 students already, and that was as of June 6th. Round 2 took place July 3rd. I don't have those numbers yet, but there were 66 spots remaining. So for Head Start, and there's not a cap for pre-K. So good numbers. Lots of work being done by them.
All right. Anything else? All right, that'll bring us to superintendent update. Dr. Harkrider's first update for us.
Yeah, just a few things. Starting week 2, my GPS is getting a really good workout. I have no idea where I'm going 90% of the time. I can make it to Willis to here without the GPS, but when I leave this particular area, I need quite a bit of help right now. So I can't even tell you how to get to the house we're about to buy, and I went and looked at it earlier. So anyway, I think it will start to feel more like home to me and my family when we move over here. We should be here in about 3 weeks. So I have a daughter that's a freshman that's been putting on the brakes, and then she's good with coming and not. Since we found a house, she's all about it and is ready to get over here. So that's a big hurdle for me to get over for sure. I met with my cabinet the last 2 weeks, finishing up individual meetings with all of them. They've been very kind in breaking me in very slowly, so I definitely appreciate that. It didn't take me long to figure out, got an outstanding team here, and I'm really looking forward. That excites me even more after my interactions with them, of their commitment, their knowledge, their commitment to this school district and the staff and kids here. It's going to be a blast working for them. Just a few upcoming events. First Success Team meeting, July 26th, there is going to be a community reception to welcome my family and I to the district. July 31st, a new teacher university kicks off July 31st through August, that week, first week in August. And then our big district kickoff event is August the 9th. So a lot going on the beginning of the year. Obviously, everything's new to me, so it's every day is like a new day. It's definitely not a Groundhog Day lived over. But we're excited. I think the future's bright for our school district, and a lot of great things happening, and happy to be a part of the team.
Well, welcome again. We appreciate that. Brings us to item E, hearing of citizens. We have nothing that will bring us to item F, consent agenda. Those items are item G, item I3, I4, J2 through J7. Any questions?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Hall, a second by Mr. Decker. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. That'll bring us to item I1. Consider approval of an order of election authorizing a general election to be held on November 7th, 2023 for the purpose of electing CSISD Board of Trustees Position 6 and Position 7 by the qualified voters of the College Station ISD, establishing early voting locations and vote centers for this election, and making provisions for conducting the election. Am I correct that the recommendation needs to be as stated in the memo? I don't know if that's how we've done it in the past. Okay, I'm just making sure. Didn't know if there was some formal.
I second.
He didn't even motion yet.
I didn't. I move that College Station Independent School District approve the order of general election regarding the November 7th, 2023 general election.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Hall, second by Ms. Dolan. Any discussion? Motion, okay. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Bring us to item 2, consider approval of an interlocal government agreement between College Station ISD and Brazos County related to the November 7th, 2023 general election.
I move that the College Station Independent School District approve the interlock agreement with the County of Brazos regarding the November 7th, 2023 general election.
I have a motion by Mr. Hall, second by Dr. Payne. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just want to comment that I think last year was the first time I realized that this kind of was important, right? That we do follow the county and their decisions that they make on voting locations, and that I even asked if we wanted to have input on that, we could do that ahead of time. And I'm personally just glad to see that they've added the MSC back as a early voting location. So I am happy to again follow the county because of that. So.
Okay, anything else? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. That will bring us to item J1, consideration, discussion, and possible action related to the 2023-24 employee compensation plan. Ms. Strauss.
Thank you. So in workshop earlier, you heard a budget update, which included the compensation plan, but I'll give you a few highlights of the proposed plan that you have in front of you tonight. So it is a plan that includes a teacher new hire pay scale, pay grades for administrators and professionals, paraprofessionals, and auxiliary personnel, a stipend schedule, a continuation of an attendance incentive program for bus drivers, bus monitors, custodians, cafeteria workers, continuation of a bus driver hiring incentive, and lastly, language required for the teacher incentive allotment. A couple of highlights for the plan, and that is the new hire teacher pay scale increases the beginning teacher pay from $49,600 to $51,000. It includes at least a 2% increase for those on that scale as they advance a year. So gross pay from this year or base pay from the current year to next year would have at least a 2% increase. And the years of experience on that new hire have been increased to go to 35 years from the current 26. All other staff, with the exception of those on that schedule, would be awarded a 2% increase of their pay grade. Now, we'll mention that the pay grades, the minimum, midpoints, and maximums, we did not propose a change to those this year, although there are a few positions that have changed within those pay grades to better align with market as well as job responsibilities. Overall, the compensation package is almost just shy of 2.5 million, 2.48 million for just the compensation. And when you count the stipends that were previously approved in June, that increases it to 2.9 million. Lastly, that we were expecting some legislative action with regard to compensation. That did not occur. But we still anticipate possibly a special session. So this package is contingent upon any future legislation that might occur. And if that does, then that package would supersede this one, meaning that it would replace it and not be in addition to. So I just wanted to make that point as well.
I motion to approve as presented.
A motion by Dr. Payne, second by Mr. Decker. Any questions?
I just want to make a comment. I appreciate Mr. Odd's attention to the legislation. We're putting a lot of hope and faith in our legislators to put some compensation forward, and that for the teachers, that 2% is not reflective of their work. We wish we could do more, but we don't want to eat into that potential compensation.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion again. All in favor, say aye. All right, all opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Ms. Draws.
Thank you.
That will bring us to item L, executive session. Board will meet in executive session to discuss 2022-23 school security and safety audit. Executive session deliberations will be held pursuant to the deliberation regarding security devices or security audits, closed meeting, exception to the Texas Open Meetings Act as set forth in section 551.076 of the Texas Government Code. As always, thank y'all for being here, and we'll see you when we get back. All right, that'll bring us back to open session and then bring us to adjournment.